Hello, welcome. I'm here at my actual car garage, but look at this nice background right here. Which background would you prefer to look at? I thought the bamboo would be nicer. So I'm here at the car garage because I had inspiration this morning to come on and respond to the question that's come up for a lot of people actually over the last week or so. And so I thought it would be worth doing a video to share about it. And so some of the questions have been in relation to client sessions. Some of the questions have come on the back of the videos I've done recently in responding to questions where I've mentioned my river metaphor and I've talked about whirlpools. And so some people have been asking, what are these whirlpools? What are you talking about? And also from a client perspective, there's been the highlighting of how whirlpools can be categorised as one particular kind of experience. And so I want to highlight today how there are actually three types of experience available when we're looking at whirlpools. Three broad types of whirlpool activity are worth paying attention to. So just to give some bigger context, I've got a free training on my website and I'll pop the link below if you want to sign up and receive that. That talks more generally about the river metaphor as a whole, including the whirlpools, and therefore how our experience of life in the content is created every single moment of every single day. And whatever that content of life is looking like is determined by what's happening upstream, and essentially whether we're identifying with whirlpools or we're not, identifying with ideas or not. So I'll start this video by talking about really why whirlpools happen. Like, what are they? What leads to them coming about? And then I'll share about these three broad categories of whirlpool activity that I see, some of which are super obvious and some of which are less so. So what are these whirlpools then? Put very simply, they are the experience we have when we're believing a thought that's in opposition to reality. When we're believing a thought to be true, when it's not true. When we're believing anything, really, to be fixed and definite and absolutely how it is, then a whirlpool is created. Another word for whirlpool could be resistance. Whenever we're thinking, whenever we're believing a thought that's in opposition to life, there's resistance. When we're believing a thought that's in opposition to how things already are right now, right here, there's resistance. And that resistance shows up in different forms. So it might be very subtle discomfort or subtle irritation, but it could go to full-blown anxiety, stress, overwhelm, not sleeping. You know, there's a very broad scale here of the kind of level of yuckiness of feeling which is available within a whirlpool. And that's where I'll come on to talk in a moment about these three different categories that sit within that. But essentially what that therefore points to is the invitation for us to get really, really clear on how we're feeling. Because if we're feeling any level of yuckiness, any level of feeling of discomfort, of resistance, of problem, of it being personal, all of these are the indicators that I'm believing something untrue, i.e., I'm in a whirlpool. Because when we're not believing a thought to be true or an idea to be true, we are just in the moment with life, taking action, speaking words with zero consideration for anything, really. We don't spend our time then in debate. We don't find we're unclear. We just know. We know in the moment what to do, what to say. Even if there's a choice, it doesn't look like a big deal that there's a choice. These are the moments of life that just happen, that flow by unnoticed because they're so ordinary. And that's actually what's available in the absence of belief in opposition to life. That's our natural state. And that feels good. That feels easy. At the very least, it feels neutral. And at the very best, it feels enlivening and fulfilling and full of love and enjoyment and possibility. But at the very least, it feels neutral and just isn't noticed because it's just life happening. And then the instant there's any kind of belief in a thought in opposition to how things are, instantaneously a whirlpool arises. Instantaneously we're in opposition to life as it is. And we've now created some kind of inner battle about what's happening rather than being with what's actually happening. And this happens so fast. This process happens so fast. And sometimes so invisibly. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But the reason why it's so powerful to have the stance of being able to be aware of what's happening, that's the power of these shifts and these disidentifications and these dropping of beliefs, dropping of belief in ideas, to therefore return to the natural flow of life in the moment. Because any attempt to try and get in there with the thinking, to try and manage the thinking, it just doesn't work, because it's instantaneous. There's a great Eckhart Tolle quote, actually. I'll see if I can find it and put it in the description. But it's along those lines of, essentially, it's a fool's errand to try and stop the mind. It's a fool's errand to try and catch it and stop it before it does its domino effect of problem creation. We must look further upstream to who we are. And that is the power which then unravels the mind, which then aligns the mind with our nature, with remaining present with life as it is. So, to summarise that first bit, a whirlpool is any time when we're believing a thought which is in opposition to how things are, to how things really are right now in this moment. So to come on to the second part then, and talk about these three broad categories, because within that I'd said about there's almost like this scale of whirlpool feeling, and so notice our feeling is our navigation system. Oh, hello bamboo. Our feeling is our navigation system because it tells us if it's feeling yucky, if it's feeling clunky, if it's feeling difficult, if it's feeling like a problem, if it's feeling personal. All of that is the sign there's a whirlpool at play. That's the sign that I'm believing an idea that's not true. Anything that feels easy and nice and good and flowful and just not even catching my attention, then that is the sign of absence of whirlpool. That's the sign of flow and just being with life as it is. So over here, if we've got this imaginary scale of very subtle feelings of resistance up to very, very big feelings of resistance, I kind of see there's three categories, three types of whirlpool that become available and visible through an exploration of who we are and what's really true. And the first category I'll talk about is the really easy stuff. So it's the stuff that if you've had any kind of awakening, it will probably quite easily have fallen away. It will probably have quite easily been seen through as completely ridiculous to keep following. And that's the kind of stuff which is like, oh, it's raining today. And to believe the thought that says, but it shouldn't be raining. I don't want it to be raining. I've got such and such happening today. That's going to ruin my day. I don't want it to be like this. That's the kind of small level beliefs that we can hold where we battle with reality as it is. Or like a client said the other day, as she's come into the recognition of awareness through reading the Complete Book of Awakening, it was only in the early few chapters, and she recognised how much resistance there was to life. She recognised how little moments like the cornflakes spilling out, and the thought was believed, oh, that shouldn't have happened, I've got too much to do, this shouldn't be happening now. but it was. And so that instantly, the belief of that thought, this shouldn't be happening, was in opposition to the fact that the cornflakes had spilled. And hence a little whirlpool showed up in that moment, creating resistance, creating a yucky feeling, creating dis-ease, and having us feel not like ourselves. What other small examples might there be? The weather's always the best one, because it seems to be something, perhaps particularly for Brits, that's really easy to resonate with and relate to. I'm trying to think of some of the simpler ones that I saw when I first came into this. I think that's one of the main ones, actually. These little moments in life where we believe the thought that says this shouldn't, they shouldn't, that shouldn't be happening. These little shouldn't moments are perhaps some of those most insidious beliefs or thoughts believed true, which create tiny little whirlpools throughout a day, and which are actually often the most easy to recognise, to stop believing, because you can see really quickly, like, well, that is futile. You know, how is it helping me to say it shouldn't be raining when it is raining? All it's doing is creating upset in me. If I stop believing that thought, then I can just be with the fact it's raining, and most likely then I'll take some really sensible action in response to that. Absent of that clutter of a resistant whirlpool experience, we are super amazing at taking sensible, responsive, appropriate action for this moment right now in this moment. So that's the little stuff. Then I'm going to go to the other end of the scale and talk about the stuff where, what we might call normal mental health stuff. So anxiety, stress, overwhelm, they're kind of the main ones. Like, it all feels too much, I can't handle it. Anxiety over what's going to happen, what does this mean for me, my work, my business, my family. Overthinking, lots of fears, basically, lots of past future activity of the mind being believed, and lots of discomfort. So lots of discomfort in the system, a very loud alarm bell sounding to say you are believing a thought that's in opposition to reality. You're believing a thought that's in opposition to the truth of this situation right now. So if, for example, let's say, well, here's a lovely one that's often showing up. I saw in the news this morning, interest rates have risen again, and the news portray it with an image of a couple sitting, looking worried, head in hands, gosh, what are we going to do? So the media support the narrative and support you believing the thought that says an interest rate rise is terrible, this is going to mean terrible things for your future. And so a mind that is great at trawling the past and finding old thoughts from the past, and great at projecting that past experience into the future and saying, look, if this has happened in the past, then this can happen in the future. And telling you all sorts of scary stories about what this means, that these interest rates are rising again, and look at the picture of the people, you look how worried they are, oh my goodness, yes, clearly I should be worried as well. And so if we believe all those thoughts, we're soon going to find ourselves in an experience of worry and anxiety, because we're just believing the ideas of a mind, which all it can do, all the level of the mind can do, the level of whirlpools can do, is act off its existing database. It doesn't have fresh information for this moment now. It only has its existing database that it's collected from years and years and years and years of hearing stories about money and stories about interest rates and stories about recessions and probably past life database information about starvation and about famine and all this kind of stuff. So a mind is amazing at taking that database information, bringing it to the present moment, saying, oh my goodness, danger, danger, danger. And then that gets projected forward into the future to say, well, this has happened before, therefore this is going to happen in the future. And when we believe all of that, instantly we're going to be in stress, we're going to be in overwhelm. And of course it can show up in work. Things are tough. Oh my goodness, what does that mean for my job? What does that mean for, is there going to be redundancies? I can't afford to not have this job. The family, there could be stories about the family of this is how they're behaving now. Oh my goodness, what on earth does that mean for their future? Worry, stress, if they're not going to pass their exams. Oh my goodness, what does this mean for future career opportunities and their money and their safety and security? So the mind is amazing at taking all this past database of information and bringing it to this present moment. And the minute we believe it, we're going to be in that experience of stress, anxiety, overwhelm. And it's not fun. It's not fun. So that's kind of the kind of the big and dramatic and the creation of an experience based on believing past thoughts about whatever this situation is. And again, the minute we see that that's what we're doing, we drop that belief, we stop believing those thoughts because we see they're not true, they're a past idea, and instantly we're here in the present moment and we can take really sensible action. So, I don't know, if it was the interest rate thing, you might start looking at ways to save money. You might start looking at downsizing. You might start looking at, do I need to keep a car? There are all sorts of possibilities of that become available the less we're caught up in all these past ideas that are being projected into the future. And for caught up, you can read believing. We're believing those thoughts to be true. So then there's a big swathe of stuff in the middle of these two experiences. So if we were to say there's this little stuff at the bottom, the it shouldn't be raining stuff. There's the stuff at the top, which is the past, future, circumstantial stuff. And then there's a big chunk of stuff which is related to who I think I am and how I think things need to be for me to be okay. But very much at an identity level. Very much at a, I'm this kind of person and therefore it needs to go this way. And these experiences can be very obvious as whirlpools, but can also be quite subtle. And what often happens is that in this exploration, once we've cleared these little experiences, and perhaps even once we've cleared these big, noisy, anxiety, overwhelm stuff, then we start to get access to this middle section where we're challenging really who we think we are and how we think we need to be. So these can be obvious. So this could be, for example, I don't know, somebody in the workplace who is challenging your authority. And if you're a boss, if you're a leader, and you have the belief that, well, I'm the boss, I should be in control, I should be in charge, I should be respected, I should be seen as the one with the answers, then if somebody comes along and starts challenging that and disagreeing with you or pushing back on your ideas or suggesting your ideas might be wrong, then instantly your belief that I'm the boss, I should be in charge, I should be the one that knows, I should be the one that decides, I should be respected, my decisions should be respected, I'm right. The minute somebody comes along and suggests the opposite, suggests that your ideas are up for challenge, then if you cling to a belief of your thoughts of how you think it needs to be, you are instantly going to be in that whirlpool because they are here showing you that your beliefs are not true. The thought that you're believing is not true because here they are right here in front of you challenging you. So your belief that my thoughts are correct because I'm the boss and I shouldn't be challenged on that, here's the evidence right here in front of you with somebody challenging you. And that could feel incredibly uncomfortable in the moment. That could feel disorienting, that could feel irritating, frustrating. It could cause anger. It could create anger in you because the belief that it should be my ideas is being challenged, and so that the mind pushes back and says, no, I don't want to hear that. I've got this idea that my ideas are right. How dare you push against that and suggest that it's not true? And so the world is resisted, the person is resisted, life is resisted, when really that person is a gift. They are showing you what you're believing. They are showing you the belief you're holding, which is in opposition to life. They're inviting you to come back into reality with this moment. They're inviting you to drop your idea of how you think it should be and become present with this right now as it is, which could be openly listening to the person's perspective. It could be taking their idea on. It could equally be saying, oh, okay, I really get it, but no, that's not going to work because X, Y, Z. Hence opening up a beautiful discussion rather than a wall of resistance going up that says, no, how dare you challenge my belief that I'm the boss and I'm therefore in charge and I know and I'm right and my ideas are the right ones. That wall is the resistance to life, and it feels horrible. And what we've been taught to do is assume that it's the other that's wrong. We've been taught to assume that if I feel like this, they are the problem, so they need to change. When in fact, if I feel like this, it's pointing me to the fact there's a whirlpool, and if I stop believing this thought that's creating this whirlpool, then I'll be back in the present moment. Then I will be back in connection with this person as they are, with their information as it is. And we will be much more capable of being in relationship from that space. So we can have these really, these big experiences. Often our kids are great with this as well. And you've got the conscious parenting program coming up soon. Our kids are amazing at challenging the beliefs we have like this, at challenging the ideas we have of who we think we are, how we think things should go, how we think they should behave. They are testing us every single moment of their lives to let go, to let go, to let go, to recognise where we're believing a thought to be true and where it's not serving us or them. So one that I held and still hold, it still comes round, is the belief that I have to be reliable. That somehow for Helen to be okay, she has to be reliable. And therefore that belief got projected out onto my kids, especially my son. And so I would, if he wasn't going to go to football training that day, resistance would rise in me because he was challenging my belief that you should be reliable, you should be there for your team, you've made a commitment, you should follow through on your commitment. And yet here he was, perfect evidence that that wasn't true, because he was willing to not fulfill a commitment. He was willing to not be reliable for his team. Instantly and perfectly challenging my belief that it was a 100% truth that you had to be reliable, and that was the only way to be okay, that was the only way to be safe and loved and included and accepted. And so beautifully, he brought that into my experience so that I could feel that discomfort, the frustration and the anger that arose when he wasn't going. And then afterwards, the opportunity to pause and reflect on that and go, oh my goodness, I was totally believing the thought that said you have to be reliable, that 100% of the time you have to be reliable, that 100% of the time you have to be committed to what you said you'll do, that 100% of the time you can't let people down. All these beliefs were being held as true and guaranteeing my suffering, because the instant life was showing me that wasn't a 100% truth. And by the way, none of them ever are. It was showing me, drop your idea. Stop believing that idea, because look how it hurts. Look how uncomfortable it is. And so in that we get to see it, and if it's these big ones to do with our identity, we get to see it again and again and again. And what I've noticed with time is that although in the beginning, so that was quite early in my journey, in the beginning, those identity-based whirlpools can be very obvious like that. There can be very obvious frustration, anger, very obvious retreat or hiding, very obvious reactions, which are pointing us to look at the thoughts we're believing to be true. What I've come to see is that over time, the feeling of it gets more subtle. So it can look like, oh, that's just them being a problem. Again, almost like back to where we started. It looks like, oh, they're just a problem. Their behaviour's a problem. They shouldn't be doing that. It can almost go full circle to make it look like it's just them, when in fact it's still a very subtle remnant of that identity idea that's just coming around the spiral again, to be seen again, with clarity again, because we can only see it now. We can't borrow a past recognition or realisation. And so these opportunities come round and round again. In fact, you might want to watch my Spiral of Enlightenment video that talks about this more. These lessons come round and round again. And so with time, what once triggered us with a really big reaction can in fact now become quite subtle and almost invisible in our own feeling system. It can become such a subtle resistance that we don't even notice it's our resistance. And hence it goes back to looking like it's them that's the problem. It goes back to looking like they are the one that should be different. They are the one that should be changing. But in doing that, we are instantly giving away the power that we are, believing that the power of change sits in me wishing or hoping another would change or be different. The more we hold the power here, which is where it always is, knowing that I am the one responsible for my experience, I am the one for only ever changing this experience here, and that if this experience on the outside looks like a problem, it is pointing me back within. It is pointing me back to see what thoughts I'm believing is true, and therefore what whirlpools are being created, and therefore what's leading to this manifestation in the world. And so the same as every other type of experience of whirlpool, the solution is always to see that what we're believing is not true. It's seeing what we're believing that is not true, and it's moving into that experience. Either allowing that to be there and feeling the discomfort of it, or dropping the belief, however that happens, and moving into that clear action. But it's perhaps one of the most important things to recognise is this point at which the discomfort of the whirlpool is so subtle, so it's challenging our identity, but the whirlpool has become so subtle that it really starts to look like it's them that's the problem and it's them that needs to change. Always bring the power back here, always bring the responsibility back here. First, at least first. We take the responsibility here first. We see our beliefs for ourselves first. We turn it around and invite in the experiences we've been avoiding or denying or pushing away. And then we see what makes sense to do with the world. Then we see if we now want to have a conversation with that person from clarity about their behaviour. But it's first with clarity here. It's first with an absence of whirlpools here, as best we can in the moment. But yeah, trust me, I've seen it too many times for myself that because every time it looks like it's them, it's always here, always, either in these little examples of the rain, the little light beliefs that we've collected along the way, whether it's in the big, turbulent anxiety, stress, overwhelmed stuff, and whether it's in the either obvious or subtle challenges to identity, who we think we are. It's all okay because it's not who we really are, but challenges to identity of who we think we are and how we think things have to be for me to be okay. Those can be big and obvious, and they can be subtle, and when they're subtle it can really start to look again like it's them that's the problem out there, and they're perhaps the trickiest ones to catch. So those categories of whirlpool are all available, they're all here for every single human being, and our journey is the movement through whatever life brings us to see in that moment, whether it's one of these, or something in the middle with this identity stuff, the big chunk of identity stuff. The cause is always the same. The cause of a whirlpool, the cause of an apparent problem, the cause of something looking wrong, the cause of something feeling personal, the cause of something feeling cause of feeling yucky or misaligned, or the cause of anything looking how it shouldn't, always starts with the belief in a thought as 100% true. The belief in a thought which is in opposition to the reality that's happening right now. That's the only reason for a whirlpool appearing. Believing the thought that's happening right now to be true. And it never is. But you must test that for yourself. You can't just get this from hearing some words and learning it like a textbook. You must test it for yourself. You must challenge your thinking. Challenge what's being believed. Is it really true? Is it really 100% true? What is the should? What is the judgment? What is the idea I'm holding which is in opposition to life as it is right now? And with that challenge, the thoughts crumble because they very soon get seen to not have a leg to stand on. And then instantly you're back in your natural state of presence and flow to this moment as it is. And that's where amazing solutions arise. That's where clarity arises. That's where just really blooming sensible stuff gets done and said. Stuff that is actually in support of the whole based on how it is now. That's what we're all really looking for. So I hope this has been helpful. I'd love to hear anything that either does or doesn't make sense. I really appreciate your feedback because it helps me clarify what I'm sharing, because I might mean one thing and you might hear it another way, or vice versa. You might share something that actually shows something more clearly to me. And so I really appreciate hearing and reading your comments that you share in response to these videos, so that it helps refine my language, helps refine my way of sharing and communicating, so that it can be even more impactful and more supportive of everyone's experience in the world. So much love, thank you so much for watching, and speak soon.